Good afternoon. I'd like to welcome to Albany City Council work session and joint meeting with the Landmarks Commission. I now call the meeting to order. Can we have a roll call, please?
Councillor Newton,
Present.
Commissioner Jansen, Commissioner Robinson, Councillor Van Drimmelen,
He should be online. He said he was coming online today.
Commissioner Winterrod,
Present.
Councillor McLeod,
Present.
Commissioner Ingeman,
Here.
Councillor Smith,
Here.
Commissioner Settlemeyer, Councillor McGee,
She's gonna be online. She's online.
Commissioner Cox and Legros are excused, and Mayor Johnson.
Here. I'm here. Thank you. Number 2 on your agenda is public comment. Public comment is the time for the Albany residents to speak and for councilors to listen. The council won't discuss the topics or make decisions during public comment, but will take the comments or requests under advisement. Speakers are limited to 3 minutes and must follow the council's rules and observe the same standards of decorum. If unable to do so, they will be asked to step down and take a seat for the remainder of the meeting. When you get to the microphone, please give your name and state whether or not you live in the city of Albany. Anyone in chambers anybody sign up? Anyone in chambers like to speak to council during business public comment? Thank you. I'll now turn it over to Landmarks Commission and David Martineau, pages 3 through 42 in your packet for discussion. I do want to apologize. The cameras seem to be having some difficulty today. And also like to thank all the commissioners for being here with us this afternoon.
You want me to run it for you?
Yeah, but I need to move this because I can't read the text. Good evening, everybody. Thank you so much for coming. David Martineau, current planning manager for the city. And then my sidekick here is Alyssa Schrems. She's our highly respected historic preservation planner. So the purpose of this refresh is to bring the development code into compliance with state requirements, together with updates based on input from the historic preservation advocates, property owners, council, and commission members. So I don't remember when we actually had a joint work session between the Landmarks Commission and council. So we'd like to begin the session with an overview of accomplishments that the Historic Preservation Program has undertaken this past year. And next, we'll describe each section of Article 7 with specific examples. Then we'll move into our public outreach efforts and discuss the results of the property owner survey and the follow-up focus group sessions. Finally, we'll encourage discussion involving both the Landmarks Commission and council members in the hopes of receiving some policy direction, especially on some of those thornier issues. So first, we'll give it floor over to Alyssa to talk about an overview of historic preservation activities.
All right. Hello, everybody. Again, my name is Alyssa Schrems. I manage our historic program here at the city. So one of the things that the city has is our certified local government program. We receive a non-competitive grant through the Oregon Parks and Rec Department, or sorry, excuse me. Yeah, I think it is Parks and Recreation Department. Typically, they'll be anywhere from $10,000 to $15,000 with a match from the city of usually in-kind staff time. So potentially a total of $30,000 value from that. This year, we did a pass-through grant that allowed the Cumberland Church to restore 2 of their historic windows. We sponsored several Historic Preservation Month activities, including a talk by Dr. David Lewis, who is a professor over at OSU. And in partnership with Benton County, there was a window restoration workshop that was put on as well. We also do an annual preservation award for work that's been done on buildings in the community, which does include the Dick Olson Lifetime Achievement Award, which this year I believe went to Lisa Grotto with the Downtown Association. We have resumed doing our quarterly newsletter, which we call the Preservation Post. I am 2 episodes in of that, and another one will be due later on in the summer. I have also done 14 land use cases that have been reviewed by the Landmarks Commission, 7 that have been reviewed by staff. The ones reviewed by staff are typically easier, where they are not visible from the street or they are a like-for-like replacement. Those are usually processed within 1 to 2 weeks. And that's it for me.
Thank you, Alyssa. Switching gears, Article 7 of the Albany Development Code provides standards relating to historic review of exterior alterations, the use of substitute materials, new construction within historic districts, and demolitions or relocations, historic landmarks designations, and definitions of the terms that are used in the code. So exterior alteration is one of those sections of Article 7, and it's defined as any physical changes to the exterior of an existing structure, generally excludes the maintenance work such as painting and repairs. The purpose of reviewing alterations to historic landmarks is to encourage the preservation of their characteristics that led to their designation as historic landmarks. Review is required for exterior alterations or additions to buildings or structures that are classified as historic contributing and historic non-contributing located within the historic districts, and to landmarks outside of those districts. Another term we have in our code is substitute materials, and it's defined as materials made from different sources than the original materials. For example, if wood were used as the original material for siding, window, or trim, material other than wood would be considered a substitute material. Other examples that we commonly hear as substitute materials are plastic, vinyl, aluminum, and concrete. The purpose of reviewing the use of substitute materials is to encourage the preservation of characteristics and materials of the historic architectural style. Review is required for the application of substitute materials. Afraid of that. Okay, so finally on substitute materials, requires that the applicant show why finding matching materials is cost prohibitive. Thank you.
Yep.
So, you gotta have somebody younger than yourself when you're doing these. So as I was saying, review is required for the application of substitute materials for siding, windows, and trim on buildings or structures originally constructed before 1946 and on the local historic inventory. So new construction within the Monteith and Hackelman zoning or historic districts, the purpose for a new construction review is to review the exterior design of new construction within a historic district. It's to ensure that the new structures over 100 square feet are compatible with the character of that district. Compatibility is a very subjective term. That's why these cases like these go to the Landmarks Commission where discretion is applied. New construction within the downtown district, these software updates, is reviewed for horizontal elements, and that can include an alignment of window frames, roof lines, facades, and clear distinction between first floors and upper floors. And the development maintains other historic patterns, such as the horizontal vertical pattern of upper story windows and the pattern of entrances along the street. So for demolition and relocations, any act that destroys, removes, or relocates in whole or part a significant historic resource such that its historical, cultural, or architectural character and significance is lost. The Landmarks Commission reviews these, and they must find that the demolition or relocation request meets applicable review criteria. Following a public hearing, the Landmarks Commission may approve with conditions, invoke a stay to the demolition, or deny the application. So at the time of initiation, the community development director or designee provides the property owner and applicant with information regarding the benefits and obligations of being designated. No historic resource shall be designated as a landmark without the written consent of the owner, or in the case of multiple ownership, a majority of the owners. Removal of properties from the National Register of Historic Places requires review and approval by the State Historic Preservation Office and the State Advisory Commission. So now I'll turn it over to Alyssa to give you an overview of our 4 historic districts. Many of you will already know a lot of this, but for some of the newer council members, some of this could be new information.
All right, so one of the things to remember about Albany's historic districts is we have the unique honor of having a variety of different styles that are in our districts. A lot of times when you're thinking of historic districts, you're thinking of an entire neighborhood of like bungalows or Victorian houses. Albany kind of balks at that pattern, and we have a big mix of infill through that time. So that's one of the things that makes us really different from other communities. So the Monteith Historic District is going to look on its face fairly similar to the Hackelman District in that you're going to find the same styles of houses. You'll have your Victorians, you'll have American farmhouses, you'll have what we call vernacular, which is where they would do a mashup of styles, and it's not any one, but you've got different elements that kind of match what had been there. You've got bungalows, which are closer to a 1920s, like a style of craftsman house. All of those are going to be present in our historic residential districts. So the Monteith Historic District is typically characterized by larger lots. It's just because of how it was platted by the Monteith family. This is named after the Monteith family and the Monteith brothers with the Monteith house that we have downtown. And it has the first frame house, which was built in 1849 in Albany, and that's the Monteith house. Our next district is going to be the Hackelman District. This is going to be on the east side. This one's characterized by smaller lots. I saw a stat that said they were typically platted at 50 by 100 was the typical plat size. So when you're looking at them, you might see a 5th house on a block, where normally in the Monteith District you only see about 4 per block. These were settled by Abner Hackelman on his donation land claim. And the first house that was associated with the Hackelman District was actually built in what's going to be our downtown commercial district, and that's at Hackelman's Grove, which is right next to the Albany Civic Theater. And that was a log cabin. And then we have our downtown commercial historic district, which, again, a mix of styles. You've got our Italianate, commercial brick, and Queen Anne. You'll also see some features where we have pillars that were done, they were cast iron, and they were cast by a foundry here in Albany. And we were actually an early center of trade. I'd seen a stat once that said we shipped more turkeys than pretty much everywhere else in the United States in the 30s. And then our most forgotten district is the Albany Municipal Airport Historic District. This is the location of the initial flight of the first aircraft built in the state, which was 1910. The first flight in the state was up in Portland, but that plane was built outside of Oregon. So we have that win. The big hangar of 1929 is one of the oldest still standing examples of a lattice truss. According to research, that was a fairly regular style of construction, which has been supplanted by our newer kind of big span hangars. So this is one of the last remaining examples of that. And it also has connections to an early flying school instructor named Evelyn Burleson. She was one of the first women in flight, and she actually taught at a flight school here in Albany. Right.
Thank you so much. Good job. So to prepare for changes to Article 7, we sought public input. Surveys were developed to inform staff and the Landmarks Commission of key issues that people described. While the response rate was a little disappointing, many respondents provided robust qualitative data, mainly through comments. From the results, there are some very strong opinions on several different issues. Survey results draw attention to historic preservation efforts that can be highly contentious. These results are consistent with the pain points that staff has observed in recent years. Specifically, solar panels, cost of rehabilitation, and the use of substitute materials are significantly important issues in our historic districts. Many people noted that historic preservation grants were important as well, especially given the cost to maintain and repair their historic homes. The next set of slides shows survey data sorted by each section of Article 7. So comments for exterior alterations centered around exterior alterations being visible from the street, whether certain things like heating and air units, solar panels, and satellite dishes could be exempt from review. Others want more regulation, including why we even allow solar panels at all. Several respondents upset that energy-efficient upgrades such as vinyl windows were generally not allowed, while others stated that the cost to restore is too high, which leads to owner neglect. Concerning substitute materials, most often we run into people who want to replace windows or siding made of modern materials such as T111 composite materials or vinyl. Development Code Section 7.200 describes the eligibility for the use of substitute materials, and the City of Albany interprets the Secretary of Interior standards for rehabilitation on compatibility to allow substitute siding and windows only under the following conditions: if the building or structure is rated historic non-contributing, or in the case of historic contributing buildings or structures, the existing siding, windows, or trim is so deteriorated. Can you do that?
I can do that.
Thank you. Or so deteriorated or damaged that it can't be repaired, and finding materials that would match the original siding, windows, or trim is cost prohibitive. There's no metric for deciding what is cost prohibitive or not, and this has been a significant issue. Concerning new construction, new structures within the historic districts over 100 square feet require historic review. Projects visible from the street go to the Landmarks Commission for their review. There was frustration concerning demolitions and relocations. There was frustration voiced by one resident regarding the process for demolishing an outbuilding so that they could replace it with a new garage and an accessory dwelling unit. Another respondent thought that the city should not tear down historic contributing buildings because the owner won't maintain or restore them. Article 7 was amended in 2020 that provided the Landmarks Commission more options for the demolition applications. So following a public hearing, the Landmarks Commission may approve with conditions, invoke a stay to the demolition, or deny the application. And some people recognize that there are neighborhoods representing periods of time in the 1940s and 50s that would be nice to have added to a historic district, or it could be added to the historic inventory individually. Others thought that the structures in existing historic districts were overregulated. Many others did not know what the process would be to expand districts. And then finally, we received a lot of responses all over the board about historic review representing many different perspectives. Representative statements are provided here, such as the permitting process onerous and expensive. Others think that they've done a great job working on historic preservation. Some wanted to see more staff level reviews, and some complained that it took months to finish the process. So that's about all we have at the moment. Thank you for your time. We'd love to hear your thoughts and welcome any policy direction you can provide us. We just wanted to have this be the start of a broader conversation about how we can make Article 7 work better for people. So thank you for your attention.
Commissioners, councilors, have anything?
Yeah.
Oh, Commissioner?
I guess I'll start. As far as solar panels, I think there's some streamlining that can be done there as far as making some of those more staff review. I know that comes up before Landmarks a lot. You know, there's technical bulletins from the National Park Service on this, and I think we can develop a set of standards that's reflective of that, that can make more of those a staff level review. Because that would cut down some of the Landmarks work and speed up the process for some of those. Considering size of buildings, accessory structures, those kinds of things. One thing to remember about a National Historic District is that it's a district. It's a sense of time and place for the area, not just of, you know, certain showcase houses within that area. And so we need to be careful to continue to protect the entire district, not just little pieces of it that we think are the best pieces, but to keep that sense of time and place for the entire district. And then another one is a fairly simple change to the code, and that is there's several cases where the code vaguely says compatible with the surrounding area, compatible with surrounding buildings. We need to make sure that that's clarified, that it's compatible with the surrounding historic buildings, compatible with the surrounding historic materials, just to clarify that. Thanks.
I find, so with the substitute materials, I don't feel like that there should be materials used that wouldn't have, I don't agree with using inferior materials or different materials that wouldn't be time appropriate, like for example, vinyl windows. As someone that has a historic home, you know, I've helped neighbors fix their wood windows. They're like a buy it for life thing. You know, we have a lot of original windows, you're able to repair them. It's actually more affordable to maintain and repair, less stuff in the landfill. And it also maintains the historic integrity of the home and of the district. So my 2 cents, and I agree with Commissioner Settlemeyer. I find that we would be able to, I know that there are quite a few of my neighbors that have solar panels, and I feel that we should be able to find a way to standardize that process to make it easier for folks to get those added. And I see on the desk too, there's a letter here from Bernadette, the president of the Friends of Historic Albany, and I just want to say I concur with her opinion and would like us to apply what FOHA has given when looking at modernizing Article 7.
Counselor Jensen, or who was that? Oh, Counselor Thompson.
Go ahead. Well, yeah, if this is just a free-for-all, I got a lot to say. Design guidelines adopted by the council, which would be a much more comprehensive item than I think listed here, but I think landmarks gets bogged down sometimes on minutia, and this wouldn't solve all of it, but I think, let me back up, design guidelines I think are common, I've been told are common in other historic districts. And I think that's kind of the first overarching item.
Can I provide some feedback on that one?
Yeah.
So one of the things that makes Albany unique is one of the things that makes design guidelines hard to do. So within the Monteith district, we probably have 10 to 12 styles.
Yeah.
So design guidelines would either have to be written broadly enough to apply to all of them, or we'd need 12 different styles. So that's something we've wrestled with, but that's what I keep coming back to. And
That's probably why, you're probably
Yeah.
answering why another district that is comprised of mostly similar has those and Albany doesn't. But I think it's a work, just trying to help, make things more objective and less subjective. And with that, more subjective and less objective, the phrase of cost prohibitive within the replacement with substitute materials becomes, it's cost prohibitive for everybody. The whole exercise of doing this is cost prohibitive. I mean, to be blunt, and what happens is a precedence is set by one person, and then the next person comes in. It doesn't really matter. The concept of who's cost prohibitive to who doesn't really matter. It becomes, well, you gave them that break. Why don't you give us? And so once again, I think it becomes more of a, if you could define what cost prohibitive means in some fashion, and who does it mean to who, I think that's been a big hole that's been driven through by folks that it, frankly wasn't cost prohibitive to them. More staff reviews. Yeah, especially solar panels, if you could streamline a system where more solar panel decisions could be at the staff level. But there is great concern, I must say, that I know a few landmark commissioners from the past and some that are here, and staff has has a history of kind of blanket approval, kind of quick approval. That's kind of the attitude. And so I'm kind of, while I said, yes, if you could develop some type of streamlined way for solar panels to be approved at the staff level, I'm hesitant to give staff more frankly, because I think it becomes a case of approve first and just rubber stamp everything. So those are some of my comments right now.
Commissioner Renneroot, then I'll go to you.
I just wanted to respond on the cost prohibitive issue. It's been something difficult that we've had to struggle with. Where we've found the most success is when an applicant will bring in information on the cost of repair versus wholesale replacement using new materials. And that's where we look clearly at whether it's cost prohibitive to replace, to do the repair and use more historically appropriate materials versus wholesale new materials. And we've been pretty successful with that approach. And I think we actually had a great success where an applicant came to the first hearing, didn't have any information on the cost of what they wanted to do using new materials. They were proposing all new materials, or what it would cost to repair and to use some of more historically appropriate materials. Came back the next month with the information. The cost was not much higher to do repair and replacement with appropriate materials. And the applicant on their own actually chose to do that because they knew that it would have a better outcome for the home in terms of longevity and the way it would look, and it would maintain the historic character better. So we were thrilled with that. It didn't, if an applicant had come in for the first meeting with that information, it wouldn't have required a continuance for a month. And I think we're getting more and more examples like that other applicants can benefit from. But that's where we have found, looking at the cost, comparing the two. But it is a difficult issue to deal with, but we're getting there.
Thank you. Thank you. Commissioner Johnson.
Okay, so when we did a lot of the building constructions downtown, they substituted boral for the windowsills, and that's a substitute material, but it performs better, and it looks like wood. So that was something that came to us that we had to decide whether to use or not, and I think it's a given now, isn't it, Chad?
Not necessarily. It still, as a substitute material, it still requires a review. I mean, we embrace products that hit the mark.
And then the other issue I have is if an applicant does not follow the designs that were submitted to planning, and they go on and do what they want to anyway, and they finish it, we have no repercussion as a landmark commission to stop any of that.
So what I've been doing over the last year, and it actually started 2 years ago, but it's been consistent for a year now, is one of their conditions of approval is that they have to follow the plans as submitted, and I have to do a final inspection. If at the time of final inspection we find that they did not follow their approved plans, we have made them come back to landmarks.
But do they have to change it to what the design was in the submitted drawings?
So if they come back to landmarks to get the change approved, they'd be subject to review. And if landmarks says no, then yes, they would have to switch it back. So they have two options. If they don't follow their approved plans, there's just take it down and put what should have been there, or they come back and get blessing. And that goes through a public hearing with comment.
Okay.
Yep. So in response to those concerns, that's what we've implemented, is that additional review and additional catch.
Well, and I'm totally against vinyl windows in a historic home, no matter what. But if they have the metal framed windows in there that were not original, they should be allowed to change those to meet the criteria and not have to go through 6 months. I saw one of the comments, they said they had 9 months they had to wait for a metal window to be replaced, and that shouldn't be something that takes that long to do either.
I mean, I don't know specifically which one that is. Normally, I would put them, if we have photographic evidence and they were going to bring it back to what that window was in the photograph, and that's a staff level review and it's 1 to 2 weeks. So I'm not sure exactly what happened with that situation, but I can tell you we've got a couple options to work through it that wouldn't take 9 months.
And so this whole process should not take month to month to month and about 6 months to get something through landmarks if they actually submit their documents completely. That's the big thing.
Correct, yes. We had a siting application that took 6 months because it took 5 of them to find a contractor that could provide them the siting they were looking for. So, that a lot of times the wait is because of factors outside our control.
So the other thing I've noticed is like people that try to do things that are outside of building permits and the rest, and I've submitted several of those to you, obviously, that they have rebuilt stairs with pressure-treated wood and hardy plank on a house and that kind of stuff. And is there anything that the city or we can do to stop that from happening at any point?
My understanding of our code enforcement process is that we are complaint-based, so a complaint would have to be submitted and then it goes through the code enforcement process, which I help with, but I am not the person in charge of. So I'm not in control of the timeline that it takes.
So that would be Christian Dell.
It's being brought in-house. It's part of just community development at this point.
Okay.
Okay, Commissioner Robinson?
Thank you. I'm going to start by saying, just briefly, and I'll try to keep all of this brief, I want everyone to know that our staff support here, Alyssa and David, during my time on the commission, they have been tremendous, head and shoulders above other staff support we've had. Really appreciate what they do for us. And I know that they work hard to bring us as complete an application as possible and kind of let the applicants know what to expect, what kind of information we need in order to make a decision that's actually based on findings and complies. So thank you guys for that. Really appreciate that. I think that I agree with a lot of what was said in the letter from Friends of Historic Albany. When she talks about those substitute materials like Boral, kind of to Jim's point, it's hard to say this brand's approved, and this brand's approved because things change, brands change, things reformulate, or they go away altogether. And Boral is an example of that. That company was acquired and bought out and products went away. It's now called something completely different.
True exterior.
True exterior, yeah. So we have to leave that a little bit. Substitute materials will continue to evolve and change. Anything we put in code as far as any specific brand or anything, I think will just kind of, it's not gonna serve us well. It's gonna age and it will go away before the code gets updated again. As far as the review at the end of the projects, like definitely, any of those times, Jim, that projects have been brought back to us, that's because Alyssa has been doing a site review at the end. And so I definitely think that process is in place, it's working. We deal with a lot of what the city council deals, you guys deal with it on steroids, but I hear comments from people all the time. I work in building materials. Oh yeah, that Albany Landmarks Commission, they held us up for months on this. And I say, well, that's interesting, I'm the chair. This project never came before us. That wasn't even a landmarks thing. So some of it is just chitter chatter and misinformation. We saw in the survey that we did, at least in the focus group that I was able to attend, there's a lot of people out there who have heard a lot of things, but it's either not us or it's not even material to what we do. And some people are almost scared. Like, well, I wanted to do this, but I didn't know what was gonna happen if I went before landmarks. I was lucky in my focus group, we had a historic homeowner in the group that was like, oh no, here's a list of resources for you. You can do this and this and this. And so it's not as scary as people have heard it is. So, part of the focus groups and the outreach and the newsletter that you have done has really helped a lot to let people know, like, hey, come check us out anytime, see what we're doing, give us input, we're open to that. If there's anything not currently in the development code that I would like to have, and it's a big ask, but demolition by neglect. Because I think some of the real lightning rod things that have come before city council and the commission wouldn't have got that far. We'd never be in that spot if we had a little more going on in the years before the buildings reached the point they reached. And I'll withdraw at that.
Counselor Newton? Oh, excuse me, let me go to him first.
Yeah, absolutely.
What's your name, sir?
Mr. Eggman.
Edmund?
Yes, I want to echo what Chad says, that I'm sorry, I've lost my train of thought.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
I'll come back to you.
All right, thank
Please,
you.
yeah.
I wanted to
Counselor Newton?
Yeah, I wanted to concur with Commissioner Robinson. You know, I've had to dispel a lot of folks are like, oh, I've looked at historic homes, but I was afraid of moving into a historic district. Isn't it like worse than HOAs? And I'm like, no, it's not. Like, you can paint your house whatever color you want. They're like, oh, well, I thought that you like had to talk to someone, you know, before you like put plants in your front yard. I was like, I would be in trouble because of the amount of plants I put in my front yard. I'm almost as bad as Commissioner Engelmann. One day I aspire to have a yard as amazing as his. But I feel like there's a lot of myth behind it, and it's really not difficult to maintain a home. And I wanted to mention, Commissioner Jansen, you mentioned, I have one, not from me, previous owner of our home, we have one metal framed window that I will one day replace. And guess what? It's the only one of my windows that fails. And it is the most difficult to repair. It is the most costly. All of our windows, we've fixed them. Do them ourselves. Some people aren't DIYers, but it's very. We have two kids. We have two kids. We're younger folks. It works for our budget. I find that having a historic home, being able to work with the existing materials, and do the work yourself. And I know that how my husband learned how to actually fix the windows was through a class that the city offered through vintage window restoration. I'm not sure. I think it was free, but learning how to repair and restore your own windows, which is invaluable information. It's kind of hard to. So I'd love to see more classes. I'm not sure if that's obviously wouldn't be in Article 7. I love the newsletter. I think it's great. I remember the first time I got it. I sent actually a picture of it to Counselor Thompson. I was like, "Did you get this?" He goes, "I don't live in the historic district." I was like, "Oh, sorry, lost out." But yeah, I concur with everything that Commissioner Robinson said, especially when it comes to materials changing and fluctuating. We've all who's purchased something and then it's great quality and then 2 or 3 years later it's gone downhill because right. Everyone's had that experience. So I agree that with having a blanket substitute material, not wise, especially when we're talking about stewardships over these historic assets of our community, which also are one of the largest draws for tourism in Albany and really are what make Albany such a unique place to live. And it just brings a lot of business. It attracts people. It's why my neighbors moved here to Albany. It's because they love the historic district, moved here from out of state, and heard about how beautiful the historic homes were here. And they've began being a good steward. But all right, I'll stop rambling.
England? Thank you, Counselor. You got it?
I just wanted to comment that I was pleased in the survey that so many people did approve of the idea of historic districts and that they found that was something that was valuable to the city and to others' expectations of what Albany was and could be. And that's something that is not always the case in cities that have historic districts. So that has been very positive. Another thing that has impressed me here, when I first moved here 7 or 8 years ago, I attended a couple of Landmarks Commission meetings and was distressed by the rancor that was evident among those who were on the commission and those who were approaching the commission. Since joining the commission several years later, I find out how much better it can be when you have a group of people who seem to be, generally speaking, on the same track, and a moderator who is effectively guiding us to get someplace. And that's something that you can't put into, you can't codify that in the city, statutes. It changes. But right now, we happen to have a very open landmarks group. And it is clear to me that this is beneficial to the city that that's the case. When I see applicants come in and do, as was remarked about I want to replace all the windows, have you looked at fixing them? And to have someone say, well, I just assumed that was fiscally impossible, but now I look into it and it is possible. I was for 8 years on the Landmarks Commission in a much larger city, and I can tell you that those things can end up indeed in horrible tangles. I don't see that happening here. I see a concerted effort to try to get people what they want and what they need in an effective manner, and I'm very pleased with that. I know we can't codify it, but.
Thank you, Commissioner. I just had, anybody else? I would have one thing. Okay, please.
Sorry, I forgot something. In regards to solar panels, I do have one more wish. If we can, solar panels are, in my opinion, the new vinyl window. So that is our new lightning rod and our most frequent application at this point. If there was a way to bring more of the applications in-house, I speak only for myself, I would be okay with that. And I think we have discussed as a commission, if we did that, we have a handful, a small number of conditions that we look for and that we use as a rubric for our approvals. We only see the ones that are going to be visible or partially visible from the street side. And I think even some of those could be brought in-house if those conditions were followed. Again, speaking for myself.
So just to share with you kind of what we've crafted with landmarks based on seeing these applications over and over again, the general consensus is if it's not on the front facade, so if it's on a side, front facade, unfortunately, there's two of them if you're a corner lot, but if you're on the side, you're gonna be parallel with the roof line, low profile, and typically like a black color with no trim feature on the railing between the railing and the panel. Correct me if I'm wrong, am I missing something, Cameron? Yep, as long as those things are met, we think that that could probably be in-house. Where it could get a little dicey is what do we really think about the ones right at the front on those secondary facades? And then is this really fair to people with corner properties? But typically that's about what we've kind of landed on when it comes to landmarks. Yes, Richard?
Well, I was just going to point out that this is another case where the changes in materials may affect any decision. We now see, the possibility of shingles or roofing materials that are themselves collectors. And so this may be a moot point in, 3 years, who knows?
Technology is improving.
Yeah.
Definitely. Commissioner Sotomayor?
So a couple of quick things. I agree with the demolition by neglect, and there's also where we need probably better code enforcement on the code enforcement side, both the demolition by neglect and then some of these other cases that don't come before us. And also, a lot of the survey results showed trepidation about this whole process, and I know you presented an example from, I believe it was Independence, where they had a consultant, I think that was actually partly through a SHPO grant, I'm not sure, that was a resource that you could point them to a consultant or contractor that was both familiar with the process, familiar with the materials, because time and time again, one of the biggest issues we've had with people coming before landmarks is not having a contractor that's familiar with working on historic buildings. Recent example being some windows they wanted to replace with substitute materials. We asked them what's the cost involved for repair versus replacement with like materials versus replacement with substitute materials. They did a little bit more research, came back and more or less said, hey, why don't we just fix these windows up because it doesn't cost that much more than replacing them with substitute materials. So if they could have gone to someone like that in the first place, it might not even come before landmarks. Yeah, and so that would help everybody. And another one is talking about the design guidelines. Yeah, Albany has a lot of variety of architecture styles and time periods in our historic districts, which is really kind of nice, actually. A lot of the guidelines that the city has on its website aren't specific to a particular style. They're just specific to historic buildings. They're actually pretty good. The design guidelines that have already been developed that are on the City of Albany's website, they're often kind of forgotten about. And if those can be kind of brought to the public attentions more from the very beginning, so they can see those while they're just initiating their project or process. And some of that stuff could also maybe be codified in the development code instead of just a guideline as well.
So the only thing I had was, the first thing on here says permitting process is onerous and expensive. Is it the time, or is it the process, is it the cost of getting a permit? Is it based on the project, or?
I think it's hard sometimes to separate which part they're talking about, because a lot of people conflate the historic review process with the building permit process. Building permits, yes, those are going to be more money. Our historic applications are $56 right now, might be rising to like $61 after the fee increase. Onerous, as far as time goes, if it's a staff level, it's 1 to 2 weeks. If it's landmarks, we have time periods we have to hit. The state requires a 20-day notice period for public meetings. So sometimes it's about a month to do that process, and some people find that's onerous. I do the best I can to let people know what my timelines are. Hey, if you're thinking about doing this, I'm going to need your application by X date so that I can get that public notice out. So it's hard to say. Land use applications usually take longer than what we're seeing with landmarks applications, but it could be onerous to people if this is the only time they ever do anything with land use.
Thank you. Anyone else? Thompson? Councilor Thompson.
Yeah, I should have started with this. Sometimes, for a long time, I've tried to wrap my brain around, so how many buildings, I guess houses in the Monteith Hackelman, how many are we talking about?
I know that our total,
Yeah.
I know our total number across all 4 districts in the local inventory is about 900, or just under 1,000.
That's what I thought about that.
Yeah.
And how many properties are there, how many houses are there in Albany altogether?
Significantly more than that.
Yeah. Well, I just,
17,000 or so?
how many?
About 17,000.
Yeah, 17,000. So, that's what we're talking about is a fraction of a fraction. And then even within that, we're talking about visibility from the right-of-way when we talk about doing alterations. And I just want to, what Commissioner Eggman said, that 80%, I think, in the survey like the idea of historic preservation. We're committed to it. We began this in the mid-'80s or early '80s. And we're committed to it, and I think it's served us well. I think it's served the City of Albany well. So all these seemingly difficult discussions, I think are worthwhile, and I think the district's worthwhile, and I think we just need to find a way to work on these difficult issues. But overall, there's definitely a commitment to the historic districts.
Yep.
Yeah, I've talked to other mayors, and they look back on their history in their cities. They would burn them to train the firefighters. I'm thinking, oh my gosh, that doesn't make any sense to me. But I think our districts are great. I actually go for walks with people. Other mayors come to town, and I show off our inventory. Not all of it, because it take 2 days, 2 weeks. But some of these mayors are like, we wish we had these still. So this is a great job.
So one thing I wanted to share is that, kind of based on the feedback that we got, it seemed that most of our issues with the historic district and the historic code came down more to perception than actual procedural things. So kind of what we are moving forward with doing right now is kind of being more present in the community. We're hoping to staff like a booth at the farmers market, maybe some other things where people can come and meet staff and landmarks members, to kind of show that we are normal, regular people, you know, we're not scary, and just get people kind of more comfortable with that thought, especially in a place where we're not sitting up on a dais and we look a little intimidating. So that's one of the things we're doing. I've been putting a lot of work into making sure we've got resources available on our website. We've got 3 or 4 different contractors lists now. I have one specifically from the state of Oregon for window repair people, because that is my #1 request that I get that I field on the phone. So we are trying to take that into consideration. It's not just a code issue, it's also a perception issue. So if anybody has any ideas, feel free to email me. I'm taking all sorts of recommendations, and we're just trying what we can.
Commissioner?
Way back when, in my first term, we talked about getting with the real estate agents when they sell a historic home, that they would inform the new buyer what was going on. Did that ever go anywhere?
It's hard to get everybody who's a real estate agent. We are currently still pursuing things. We want to get people an info packet, basically letting them know things, giving them resources, saying welcome to the district. I've got some recommendations of basically like data capturing websites that track when people sell homes, and they kind of can compile you a list. I think it costs money, which would be the thing. So kind of figuring out who we would go with, what that cost is. But that's the direction we're currently moving in, is kind of doing that data collection.
So would it help to invite the Willamette Association of Realtors to send their board or a board member to a landmarks meeting? You can speak with them directly.
Probably help a lot.
So I'll take that action item on myself.
We have 2 new neighbors that moved in that have never owned a historic home. And so they're newbies and they're going through the process, but they're with, you know, where we are.
Yep.
And a lot of people that have gone through this process a lot and are knowledgeable about what's going on. So we're helping them.
Yeah. And I'll also say our website has a whole page about things that do not require historic review. It's available. So things like paint color don't require review, general repair and maintenance, like you got a bad board, you can replace that, things like that. We don't review for shingles unless you've got like, I don't know, terracotta shingles, something crazy.
Thank you. I'll put it on my list of things to get done. Excellent. Any other comments or questions?
Ann Catlin is here. She has something she wanted to discuss
Please.
with all of you. So I think at this point, we'll stop sharing our screen and invite Ann to come up. Really appreciate all of you being here. Thank you so much. This is something we've been trying to work through for a number of years, and I'm really excited that we have the right people in the room, and look forward to bring back some code concepts for all of you to review.
Thank you very much, both of you.
Okay. Thank you. Hi, everyone. I'm Ann Catlin. I'm in the Community Development Department, and a really long time ago, I did historic preservation, but that's not why I'm here tonight. And I am wondering, whoever's running the meeting, if you can let me into the meeting. Thank you. So a couple of months ago, we came to you with proposed climate-friendly areas, and those areas were adopted, and there were some concerns about the boundaries of the downtown climate-friendly area, including some historic buildings in the Monteith or Hackman districts. And so I wanted to just talk a little bit about that. I've got a page that's going around, and I'm going to share my screen for those that are not here in person. Let's see.
One sheet?
Yep, it's one sheet, and yeah, so what I wanted to do is go over the boundaries of the climate-friendly area, which are in the blue area. And then also this sheet shows you the boundaries of the 3 historic districts are in the downtown area. So there were some concerns that the climate-friendly area included portions of the Monteith district. And what I wanted to show you is that in the purple circle, there are 3 properties, including the Monteith House, that are in the proposed boundaries of the climate-friendly area. And that was because all of the base zoning, the historic district, historic downtown district, was included, all of that zone. So there are 3 properties in purple, and then there is a property that is in the downtown district that's circled in green. I mean, the reason that there might be concerns about including properties in either the Monteith or the Hackman district is that most of those are residential properties rather than, even though the zoning is more of a downtown commercial zone, there were some concerns that there might be more pressure for those properties to redevelop. And so I just wanted to take this opportunity while we had both the landmarks here and also the counselors here to just see if you're still okay with the boundaries of the downtown historic district, or if you want to consider any minor modifications to take, maybe adjust that blue line to carve out either the properties in purple only, or maybe just that half block, which might make it a little easier on the map, or other adjustments. So the aerial photo is down below, and you can sort of see what those properties look like in that half block. So I just wanted to open that up for discussion, and I had promised that we would take everyone's comments into consideration and try to come back, because we didn't want there to be any concerns about the climate-friendly area, development of the climate-friendly areas.
Councilor Robinson, or Commissioner Robinson?
Well, I certainly would like to see 508 Second included in that half block. I think that's a significant building. It has quite a bit of history to it, and the outside facade has remained reasonably true to its original form. That having been said, the designation of a climate-friendly area doesn't necessarily mean that we'll no longer be protecting the downtown historic commercial, correct?
Correct. So I'll just respond a little bit more. So all of the properties that are currently regulated, meaning they're in a historic district or on the local inventory outside of the districts, Article 7, all those standards still apply. The only thing the climate-friendly area designation does is that there were some uses that we need to allow, but because these properties are already zoned downtown, most of those uses are already allowed. And there may be an incentive program down the road that might incentivize development in climate-friendly areas. There are a few additional standards, but it would not affect the historic review of any development in the historic district boundaries.
Commissioner Winterud first, then Commissioner Jansen.
That was, my question was what's the conflict? What's the impact from the designating as climate-friendly area? Just pressure to redevelop?
Well, we didn't think that there was much of a conflict, but there were maybe Commissioner Settlemeyer can voice his concerns. He did write in some testimony, yeah, so I think it's really up to you. I just wanted to make sure I was responding. Some counselors voiced some concerns at that meeting, even though the ordinance passed and we created the climate-friendly areas. But you know, if there were concerns, especially about properties that are residential and smaller lot, I mean, it's really a council policy decision. I just thought this might be a good forum to hear whether there are concerns and whether to consider an amendment to the boundary.
Go to Commissioner Jansen first, and then come back
So
to you.
I read something, or I heard that if Democrat Herald completely vacates the building, that could be open for new apartments or anything?
Yep.
Would they have to follow the guidelines of the historic district or not?
That building is not in the historic districts.
So that's outside, so they could do whatever they wanted to then.
Well, they
Even
would
though
still.
there's several buildings in that strip that are.
So when our historic districts were created, you can kind of see the shaded areas of different patterns. They're kind of jaggedy edges. They don't follow blocks or development like subdivision maps. And today, if you were to create a new historic district, they like to be a little bit more thorough. Back in the day, there was really sort of a drawing line around, well, this property is old and this one isn't, and this person doesn't want to be in, and this, it would be different if we did it today. So if you look on the map on the screen, if you don't see any shading, now some of the, you might see buildings below and you can see the building footprint. Those properties are not subject to the historic district regulations. Now, all new development has to meet our city design standards for construction, which are not, those are in addition to, if you're not in a historic district, we do have design regulations. So most of those properties between Lyon and Ellsworth are not in a historic district boundary. No, the museum is it's in the downtown district. Mhm.
I'm gonna,
Commissioner Stoudemire?
So some of my concerns about the CFA as it relates to historic districts is, as you mentioned, the current code doesn't really change a whole lot from the current underlying zoning as it stands. One of my big fears about CFAs is in the future losing local control of those areas. This was brought down by the state, and it's very possible, I know it's speculative, but it's very possible that in the future there'll be more regulations that come down for existing CFAs to override local zoning. That's my particular major concern with having CFAs inside a historic district. So I would definitely like to see that both the purple and the green circles removed from that CFA as a priority. I'd rather see the CFA somewhere else myself, just because, again, the Albany's comprehensive plan actually says one of the tools we can use to protect historic districts is preventing overdevelopment in surrounding properties. And the CFA kind of goes against that. So anyway, that's kind of my take on it.
Commissioner Smith, excuse me, Counselor Smith.
Thank you. The only thing I could add is that I would recommend that we remove the purple circle and keep the green circle, as Commissioner Robinson suggested. It seems like there's a clear line, and at least in my mind, between the two, based on current usage and historic usage. It's not that won't make that much difference to the CFA overall. It's on the edge. It's easy to do. I think that makes sense to me. I'm only one voice.
We need to check with Counselor Van Dremelen, do you have anything?
No, I don't have anything to add on this one.
Counselor McGee?
No, I don't. Thank you.
Counselor McGee?
said no, I don't think.
Oh, okay. I was very quiet. All right, Council, Commissioner?
The Loafer Station, that's the one in the green, correct?
That's correct.
Okay, so that is a historic building, is it not? So it's being considered as part of the CFA?
So the CFA boundary already exists. It can be amended at any time, but these boundaries were looked at, over sort of an extensive period of about a year and a half ago. Anyway, that is in the downtown historic district boundary. And I think that actually Commissioner Robinson suggested that both the green and the purple, just to follow the block. It is on the edge, as Councilor Smith noted. We're fine making some minor adjustments. It was just trying to do this during a public hearing and having a larger conversation without some context. I thought it would just be a good opportunity to come back while we had sort of both parties in the room that may have some concerns about downtown.
Thank you.
I
Counselor Newton?
I would say, I agree. So this is just wild to me that, I believe it's at 518 that is like the Monteith House, right? And then we have it's a Gothic home on 528, and I can't remember the determination for 538, just from glancing at it. But yeah, I'm in favor of adjusting, including both excluding from the CFA, both the green circle and the purple circle. So I want to just move those out.
Do we need to have a public hearing for that?
Well, we will do all of that process formally. I just wanted to know whether there was interest to move forward and if there was some consensus from council, basically council direction. It's just interesting that these properties are zoned the way they are. That's a whole nother issue that I tried to flag a while ago. And I feel like the downtown zoning doesn't work for these properties. That's another issue. We may or may not bring that back to you with that package. But if there's some head nods from the council that you want to consider modifying the boundary to take out that half block with a purple and green circle, I will bring it back as soon as we can, sometime, after your break and in the fall.
Think, Commissioner,
Yes.
Council,
I agree.
Yes.
Smith? Commissioner Waterville?
Have to happen. When do you have to have all this for the state?
Commissioner Eggman?
No, we already comply with the state regulations. We've already adopted our climate-friendly areas, and this is just one of 6 of them. So,
Commissioner-
yeah.
Commissioner Engelmann, you okay with the change?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I'm not
Are you
hearing.
okay with removing those 2 properties?
The
three
purple
properties?
and the green.
The purple and the green circles? You are, okay. Commissioner McLeod, Councilor McLeod? Councilor Newton? Councilor McGee? Councilor Van Dremelen? Thank you.
Thank you.
I think you have direction. Okay. And with that, it looks like our meeting has come to an end. I want to thank the Landmarks Commissioners for being here today. This is our first one of hopefully many. I think this has been a good practice, having the planning department, the budget review, and having these commissions come and join us on the dais. Do you have anything else, David?
No, I'm just turning off the laptop.
All right. Thank you all, and I'll adjourn the meeting.
Thank you.
The council here? Oh, she's here. I guess it's 4, 5. So we have 2 online. So we're going to go ahead and reconvene the meeting. The city council will now meet in executive session to discuss conduct deliberations with persons designated in the governing body to negotiate real property transaction in accordance with ORS 192.660, subchapter 2 and chapter E. Representatives of news media are designated staff, and the persons shall be allowed to attend executive session. All other participants must exit. Online audience members will be moved into a waiting room. When the council returns to open session, staff will readmit for the remaining of the into the waiting room and to rejoin the meeting. In-person audience members must leave the council chambers and wait in the hallway. When the council returns to open session, staff will open the doors and you can rejoin the meeting. Representatives of the news media are specifically directed not to report on any deliberations during the executive session, except to state the general subject of the session as previously announced. No decisions will be made in executive session. I'll now recess executive session at 5:21. Council, we had discussion. Does anybody have a motion?
I have a motion to, for Director Rutgers to continue negotiations for properties in question.
Second.
A motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
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 Those opposed say no.
No?
No.
Motion passes, so you have your marching orders.
Thank you.
Next on tonight's agenda, we're going to recess to executive session to review and evaluate the employment of performance of the chief executive officer of any public body is a public officer, employee, or staff member who does not request an open hearing in accordance with ORS 192-660- Chapter 2, subsection, it looks like I. Compensation, including salaries and benefits, will not be discussed. So now we're going to do the executive session.
Thank you.
Pull it up on the screen. I know just some of us are paper people. Here. I may not be able to make it bigger, but what's on the screen is the handout that I've provided. This was updated today. We received additional cost of living adjustment information from some of our comparable cities. And so I wanted to be sure and put that on here for you, and so you have the most up-to-date information. So, good evening, Counselor. I'm Holly Roten, your Human Resources Director, and as was mentioned, compensation and benefits for the city manager cannot be discussed in executive session, so we're now in open session to do that. My role in this process for you tonight is to go over this information, the survey that was completed, and answer any questions you have about it. We do this survey every year so that council has the most up-to-date information on salaries for city managers at the cities for which we compare. And for those who are newer to this process, we use, for some of our bargaining units, we have statute that we rely on for cities that are 50% above and 50% below in population served. For consistency's sake, we use those same cities across all of our bargaining units that we can, and for our non-bargaining and executive positions, including the city manager. So that's why these cities are listed. On the back of this document are additional cities that this council has historically asked us to survey. We don't directly compare with them. We don't consider them to be part of our market, but we pull the data and keep tabs on it and provide that to you for reference. So on this front page, it should be organized by total compensation, highest to lowest, so that gives you a nice visual. You can see that Albany falls in the middle there. Historically, this council has wanted to stay as close to 100% of market as possible. So what we've done is total up. That yellow line at the bottom is the current market average, and the two blue lines below that show Peter's current wages and relative to market, where each of those categories fall. Two quick things I wanted to note. The city is in the process of eliminating cell phone stipends. So Peter's, and we're moving to city-provided cell phones for cybersecurity reasons, records retention requirements, ease of administration, things like that. So his base salary does account for rolling that into his base pay since that stipend goes away. And then recently what was included and approved in the budget was a change for non-bargaining for the HRA VEBA, annual VEBA confirmation that we provide. That is accounted for in here. That's consistent across all non-bargaining employees. And those were the two things. So you can see Albany is in total compensation. We're at 99.6% of market, so right where you would aim for us to be or close to. These salaries are current, so they don't account for the COLAs that are listed in the July 1 COLA column. So I just wanted to be sure. That way we were comparing apples to apples. Peter's employment agreement does provide that he'll receive the same cost of living adjustment as any other non-bargaining employee, which is 3% consistent with the January CPIW. So Albany is, he's slated to receive that effective July 1 along with the rest of the non-bargaining staff. And you can see that the average among the cities that responded was 3.1. So we're right there, right on target. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions you have about this information. It's really to the council. I can share with you, if you would like a recommendation, I can provide you that, but I would much rather provide you with a list of options and things you could consider. It's really the council's prerogative. You could choose to just adopt the CPI-based COLA. You could
choose something else. You could seek to make adjustments in any one of the categories listed here. You could do something outside of what's listed here. And certainly if Peter had an ask of this council, I would invite him to share that. And you can provide staff direction if you want more information or more data. I can share with you that we recently completed a benefits survey for our non-bargaining staff. And we're, as you would expect, we're right there at market overall in terms of leave values, the cost of health insurance, things like that. So that's not on this spreadsheet, but I wanted to share that with you as well.
2 questions. Sorry.
That's all right, go ahead.
The total compensation with the 3% COLA, what's that number? Is that the number in front of me, or is it that something?
Is it 212?
It's not the number in front of you. We chose not to apply that. Originally, when we did this survey, most of the cities, and the copy that you received previously, most of the cities hadn't responded with a COLA. It was to be determined. And we didn't, it made best sense to us to leave Albany's 3% off, so you were looking at apples to apples, because it would artificially shift Albany down in the list or up in the list, depending on whether we included it. So it would be, I could do the quick math for you, but it would be the annual salary column plus 3%. Peter's deferred comp value is obviously calculated off of that.
So the market average is just the average of everything up above, correct?
Correct, yes.
Yeah, well, it looks like we're above, it's just cool to see, above 100, almost 141% in deferred comp, like 116.5% for deferred comp monetary value, 178.6% for the HRA, HSA, VEBA contribution.
I do have an
yeah.
ask. I have a document ask. Black text on blue is a killer.
Yes, sir. I will make that correction for next year.
Okay. Counselor.
So I just pulled up the calculator on my computer here, and it looks like the current annual salary plus 3% is $215,879. In case anyone was wondering.
You're faster than me.
Thank you.
It would be important to note, though, that there would be a proportionate increase in the cash value of his deferred comp as well. So,
At other times in history, city managers have asked for any COLA to be put into the deferred comp rather than in salary. Is that an option?
We're going to ask him what he wants us to do.
Right. I'm sort of nibbling around the edges of that.
sure. To answer your question directly, it would be an option. Peter could, or this council could choose, let me back up. Peter's current contract provides that he will receive the cost of living adjustment that is approved for other non-bargaining staff, which in this budget was 3%. He could agree to forego that and instead put it into deferred comp. That's certainly an option. However, he has the option to contribute to deferred comp regardless, so he could do that out of his wages.
When was the last
Questions?
time Peter's his contract was reviewed and not reviewed, but gone through carefully to make sure it says what we want it to say?
Sure. 2023 rings a bell, Peter. I think there was the council chose to amend the severance package.
Okay,
That
the
was
copy
20
that we received was
23?
2019. Right.
Okay,
So
that's not the latest version. The only difference is the severance. Some years ago, the council voted to increase his severance commensurate with his years of service. So it had a 6-month floor, and then he would receive an additional month for each year of service, maxed at 12 months.
Right.
He's reached that because he's been here for more than 6 years.
So what's the new one?
His severance is at 12 months.
Okay, nothing beyond that.
No, it's capped at 12 months. I will make sure that the city manager's office who facilitates this process gets a copy of that updated contract so that next time that's what you get.
It's becoming more common to have a 2-year severance, and that's why I'm asking that.
So Peter, since we've had discussion, what would you like to see?
I don't need, I have a 3% COLA, so I think that's adequate.
Would you like to see it in deferred comp, or would you like to see it on your?
I just, as Holly pointed out, I could do that myself, so it's just the way it is.
Council, any other questions? Do I have a motion?
I'll move to continue the city manager's contract for another year, including a 3% cost of living increase, the same as the non-bargaining unit.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. We need to do a roll call because I didn't hear everybody's voice,
Yes.
please.
Counselor Newton,
Aye. Aye.
Counselor Thompson,
Aye.
Counselor Van Drimmelen,
Aye.
Counselor McLeod,
Aye.
Counselor Smith,
Yes.
Counselor McGee.
Aye.
Thank you very much, council, for your time and your discussion. We will also congratulations, Peter. Thank you, Holly, for the work that you do on behalf of us. And keep the good fight up. And I know it's been you got a hell of a year ahead of you.
Do you need these back?
You need these back, right?
No, they're part of the public record. They'll
Oh, the
be posted on the
public record now, yeah.
website.
Okay. So next is business from the council. Who did I start with last time?
You started with Ward 3 last time.
Ward 3. Let's start with Ward 1. We'll back down.
Okay, all right.
Counselor Thompson, me, please.
I have nothing tonight.
Counselor Newton.
I have something. So I had a constituent reach out. They were concerned about some trees that were dying in downtown Albany, and they said they heard from someone on the tree commission who they said might be wrong. They wanted to hear if we were actually going to be replacing any trees that were damaged, diseased, dying in downtown.
Yeah, I can get back to you with a little bit more detailed answer, but Jay Sharp, our arborist, and he and I had talked about this last week, and yeah, we do replace trees. Now, specific ones I don't know about. Do you know which
They
block?
just said it was I will double check. I asked which trees it was specifically. They said just the trees downtown.
Okay,
So I can ask them for more specifics.
Yeah, just have them email me.
Okay, absolutely. And then something else I wanted to bring up is, just thinking about the previous discussion we had and seeing that we've had the collection of revenue for the speed cameras at the North Albany. And because we want this, the whole reason for those placements is so little kids aren't getting hit by vehicles. Because kids, as we all know, are a little rascally and can run out. I would like to see us utilize the money that we have earned, not earned, but has been paid in, and look to getting one of those flashing light to let people know when school's in session. I'm also curious, just for this doesn't need to happen right away. I'm sure you don't know this off the top of your head. Because I know that you get a ticket for 11 over. You get a ticket for speeding for 11 over. I'm just curious, how fast are people going? Are people really just, so I'm thinking, have a flashing sign. There's no excuses. People know. So I know I had someone call me and they said that they could see the elementary school sign, like the sign that says school closed. And they felt like that was like a bait and switch because they see school closed, but they didn't realize the middle school is right there behind it. So I think it'd be good to have the flashing lights. I'm happy to bring that up at a later date, but I just wanted everyone to start thinking about that. I forget what the exact number was that we were told by staff, the cost.
50 to 60,000.
$60,000.
I think
In 2 or 3 months, we'd have that?
there was also
Just
talk
that
about
one.
grant opportunities to make that
Yeah,
happen.
so I think,
No-dot grant, something like that?
yeah, so if I really want staff to seriously consider that. This is about safety of our children. It's not about collecting revenue. It's not a cash grab. And I know that these tickets, someone gets them, if they're gonna get it, they're gonna be so dang careful. But I wanna make sure that they know that kids might be around before it's too late. So that is so imperative to me. So I'd like to, yeah, have staff look into like ODOT grant or something like that. Oh, hey, do you have the data on how fast people are flying? Okay.
It's easy for us to pull from the site.
Okay.
But we have a meeting next week or the 15th, I think, whenever that is, when Director Bailey is back from vacation to talk about options on the flashing light. So there's a whole multitude, from your run-of-the-mill solar one where we can kind of put a timer in, to something that's hooked up directly to the company that runs the photo enforcement, because it's the same company that operates in other states that times it, and the cost varies all over the place. So we just have to figure out what is the best option.
Okay.
But the website will tell us the average speed and that for each location.
Awesome, thanks. Yeah, so if we, I just would like to seriously consider getting those flashing lights moving forward.
Thank you. Is that it, Counselor?
Yep, that's it.
Counselor Von Dremmelin?
No business tonight.
Counselor McLeod?
Yeah, I would also like to see the flashing lights at the intersection in North Albany. Yeah, I got a ticket there. I did. I forgot it was a school day, and I thought I was going below the speed limit, which happened to be actually more than 11 miles per hour over the actual limit. So I thought I was driving under the limit, and I still got a ticket. And so and I have a kid in GAPS. I really don't want to see children getting hurt, and I want people to be reminded when it's 40 and when it's 20. Is it 40 now? Is it 20 now? Because I know a lot of moms and dads and, parents, and grandparents get that brain fog from taking care of kids for so long. So, and you forget which days are school days and which days are not in the middle of the day. Sometimes. So please, I would love to see the flashing lights. That would indicate when it's 40 miles an hour, when it's 20 miles an hour, simply because it's such a vast difference. It's a 20-mile-an-hour difference. So yes, I would love to see that as well. Of course, I had no intention to be speeding that day, and I still got a ticket. So that's all I have. Thank you.
Welcome to my world. Counselor Smith?
I have something for Wednesday.
Okay. Counselor McGee?
Yes, Counselor Smith and I attended the lumberjack breakfast on Friday, or wait, maybe it was a Thursday. Thursday, thank you. Had a great time, enjoyed. It was pretty packed, but we beat the line and we got there about 9:30 and had a great time. That's all I have for today.
Thank you. That's all. Is everybody, right? Yeah. Okay. So all I have a few things. On the Wednesday the 9th, I'll be speaking, addressing the OCCMA board, talking about the IFAWare Mayor contest, and I'm excited about that because their interest has been refreshing for me to see that. There's a Meet the Director meeting on this 10th at 4:00 at the museum. So hope to see you there. And then Tiffany will be here at 6:00 at River Rhythms. This is pretty exciting. People coming to town. But the Wall of Honor is going to be up from the 10th through the 13th at right across the street from. That's the names from the wars. It's going to be right across the street from the American Legion Post 10. And if you want to have some fun, if you're a car enthusiast, there is the 13th annual Spring Hill North Albany Car Club show at Bryant Park. Last year, I think there was 240 entries. And for my grandson's going to come with me this year, so we're going to get to hang out with him for a few hours and then go enjoy the car show. And with that, I went to the Lumberjack Breakfast as well, and the line was so long that I went to Elmer's and came back, and the people that I walked in with were still in line. So it was a long line. But I did go the next day and had breakfast with folks, and It was a great cause, and I think it's a wonderful event for Albany. With that, I'll turn over to the city manager report.
Thank you, Mayor. I just have one thing. Actually, I did want to note that occasionally I'll ride my bike down that hill, North Albany Road, and I wonder if I break the speed limit on the bicycle. I'll have to try that. No, I'm kidding. Yeah, it's unfortunately, it's only on weekends that I get to do that, so. I will miss Tiffany this week as I'll be at the OCCMA conference out in Bend. Both Kayla and I will be there. So Chris Bailey will be sitting in the city manager seat on Wednesday night. And that's all I have, other than to thank you again for the feedback and the evaluation. Thanks, Mr. Mayor.
And with that, thank you, Peter. With that, I will then adjourn the meeting.